Why am I not feeling safe in this relationship? How easy it is for love to become a battlefield. If you're in a very loving relationship, yet you're getting triggered and feeling unsafe, there's a dysregulation in your emotions. You could love each other so deeply, but because that fight, flight, or freeze kicked in, it doesn't matter. Your emotions have hijacked everything.
How many miscommunications would be solved because of our own emotional regulation?
Once you bring it back into regulation, then your relationships improve.
We can learn how to respond instead of react.
We have the 4-step process for how to calm the body down.
Step one is
Hi! If you're enjoying this video, give us a like and a subscribe. It helps us know that we're creating content that is meaningful for you. You and I are so frequently incredibly transparent about our relationship. It's one of the things that we have vowed to do because people learn by example and they also learn through stories that we share with each other. I know I do. I think it's one of the most key things that my friends do for me, that my parents did for me growing up, right? Even if we didn't realize it, our parents, we learned more from what we saw from them
Mhm.
than from anything they ever told us. And so when we came to this and we said, we're going to do a podcast, we always promised that we would be completely transparent about our connection and our relationship. And this past week, we had a little disagreement. Not as we talk about, we don't fight, but we do have disagreements. And in that, we used what we call emotional regulation so that it didn't escalate into a fight or love is a battlefield kind of moment, right? Where emotions actually hijack the love that we feel for each other. And I felt like, and we talked about it, like that's a good opportunity to talk about how easy it is for love to become a battlefield and for your nervous system to actually get out of being regulated and to feel unsafe in your very own relationship. And for that actual physical sense of safety, and then that physical sense of not feeling safe to be the very thing that fans the disagreement into an argument. You could love each other so deeply, but because you now have that fight, flight, or freeze kicked in because your body feels unsafe and you feel like you're in a war zone, it doesn't matter because your emotions have hijacked everything. And your inner critic is now way, way escalated. And that's where things can go awry. And we talked about it in a previous podcast, but we didn't talk about this topic. So you really willing to dive in and just like flow through the moments we had together and the 4-step process that we also include for how to kind of calm the body down?
Yeah. Yeah. The 4-step calm and connect method is really, really strong and it's great. And if you stick with us here, you'll hear all 4 steps and just actual result that you end up getting. And so I'm all open here. I mean, that is, as you said, why we're doing this was to be transparent, to be open. None of us have a perfect relationship. That's just not going to happen because it's such a relative term. But what we can do is share, we're coming up on 11 years into our honeymoon phase. So that's good.
It's good
it's
stuff,
it's real
baby.
good. So something in a lot of things, if we will, are working. So we might as well, uh, you know, like, yeah, they're working. So we might as well just share. And so that's kind of just keep it really simple. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah, let's dive into it, sweetheart.
Do you ever get tired of that negative voice in your head telling you what you can and cannot do? My name is Amber Mikesell, and I personally got tired of that villainous voice controlling my inner realm. So I wrote this book, Silence Your Inner Critic. It's a comic book type series where you go in and you fight that villainous foe all along an epic quest. You can learn more about this fun filled adventure over at silenceyourinnercritic.com, and you can purchase your copy right there, or you can purchase it wherever you enjoy buying books. And we do want to share there are things in our relationship that, for a lot of people, would have been deal breakers right out of the gate that added an interesting little caveat for us, right? And we don't have to get into all of those, but for the people out there who listen and go, "Oh, it's so easy for you guys. You have it in this simple flow." It is not so easy for us. We have things in our relationship that make life interesting for us too.
Mhm.
And so there are always things that come back to us that we have to sit with open hearts and open minds and navigate our way through just like any other relationship. What makes it different is these techniques and these processes that we share with people and our willingness to come back to them again and not think that there's somehow some magic bullet that once and done and we should be good now.
Mhm.
To me, that is the key because I will admit in my previous relationships, I would think, oh, I've gone to see a counselor. We should be good now. We put in the work. We should be good now. Why is it not good now? And then I would get back to what we're about to talk to, where my nervous system would get dysregulated and I would feel unsafe in the relationship. And then I would start to pull away and it would trigger me again. And I wouldn't understand because I had already done that. Why am I not feeling safe in this relationship? But it was because it's not a once and done thing. It takes every present moment understanding where your relationship is, what it means to you, and knowing that it is worth it. It is so worth it to come back and say, look, this is where I'm at right now. And let's take the moments to re regulate and return to the connection that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we should maybe start by just kind of really discussing what emotional regulation is all about. Because unfortunately, it's not something that we have in our society as like, hey, this is a staple.
Yeah, that's true.
We learn, math and science and history and, language and writing and all these different things. And, those are important, of
Yeah,
course, but I don't use all of them every single day, but I do have emotions every day.
yeah,
So why isn't that one of those key areas of the curriculum in which we grow up? And so I know that's a question that we've talked about a lot. Why is that not part of it? I don't
I don't know
I
that we know.
genuinely don't know. It's wild. And I never thought about it growing up. I never thought about it even really much in, even after college. It wasn't until probably my late 20s, early 30s here that I was like, oh wow, this is a big question. Why is this not a huge part of what we of our development as human beings? How many miscommunications would be solved because of our own emotional regulation? Or if multiple people, for example, all were practicing emotional regulation, how much would be de escalated because of that?
Yeah. And I think that if I were sitting with it, I would say schools likely thought that you would teach that at home, right? That's what parents would teach their children. Parents likely felt, well, that's what you would learn at church or at school. And so it was, I'm projecting. I don't know.
Hmm.
Clearly, I'm not claiming I know. I'm not claiming I'm an expert. But if I were a betting person, I would bet that each area felt that the other was likely helping an individual learn it. And none of us were actually learning it in any one space. Doesn't solve the issue. It just everything got swept under the rug that way.
Yeah. Well, if the
And
parents never learned it, then how could they be teaching it? And and so on and so forth, right? And across the board, it's like, how many generations have gone by where they might have thought it, but no one ever taught it, and so therefore was actually never really shared.
yeah. And maybe we just didn't understand how important it was at
Yeah.
that point too. It's like, well, I was fine.
Hmm.
Nobody ever taught me and I was fine. I heard that a lot,
Yeah.
in my lifetime.
Yeah. But were you really? And that's the real question. People aren't. I know I wasn't for a long time willing to dive into the depth because on the surface level I was fine, but the reality was as I wasn't.
Yeah. But sometimes you don't know that you're not okay until you know that you're not okay.
Yeah.
Right. And those are other key factors too. And
Sure.
all things that we could discuss, but ultimately, even understanding what emotional regulation is, as you said, I don't know that that's the most common thing for anyone who isn't in this space or hasn't done a lot of personal development to understand. We understand regulating our blood pressure,
Hmm.
right? We've heard about that, how important it is to not have too high of blood pressure or even to have too low of blood pressure. So there's a regulation of where we want that perfect little balance to be as far as that pressure point. Well, the same is true for our emotional regulation as well. If our emotions aren't regulated, if we don't take the time to keep our emotions in healthy balance, then we do end up in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And everything begins to feel like it's either attacking us, like the whole world is out to get us, or I'm not ready to engage in the world because I'm not at a healthy balance state to engage in the world. So there are all these things that start to happen because our emotions have taken over and our inner critic is using that to its advantage,
Yeah.
right? Regulating that and having tools for regulating that is so important. And then when you're in a relationship, it's extra important because there's nothing that triggers you like a partner.
Mhm.
It is a mirror for everything that you could possibly have picked up along the way. Every ounce of baggage, every insecurity, as much as a partner is there to help you, crazy enough, triggering you and helping you understand where your baggage is some of the best help that they could possibly provide to you so that you can begin to let go of the things that you're not actually meant to carry forward anymore.
Mhm.
But some of us have become so dysregulated emotionally that that actually sends us into a spiral and makes us feel even more unsafe.
Makes sense. I mean, and yeah, I think just if we, really simplify it, like emotional dysregulation is letting your emotion hijack you, basically,
Yes.
letting your emotions take over,
Run your
just
life.
reacting, going, just not taking them, like where the difference is like emotional regulation would be if something does occur and you do feel triggered, that you have the awareness and maybe even bandwidth of and recognition um to stop a little bit. And we can, I don't want to go too much because we're going to talk about the four steps to really hone in and practice emotional regulation. But basically, what you're doing is you're shifting instead of from a reaction standpoint. And we've all done that. We say things just in the heat of the moment, or I didn't mean that. I just was saying it. But the thing is, like they're said,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like we can't take those back. And so and oftentimes those actually just compound the problem instead of actually solve the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone where overreacting solved the problem. Like that's not the way that
No.
works. And so when we can learn how to respond instead of react, that would be more of the emotional regulation and awareness of that emotional regulation.
If you need something to kind of compare it to, it really is like regulating your blood pressure,
Mhm,
right? If you know that your blood pressure is starting to creep up, there are things that you can do to regulate your blood pressure before it becomes an issue.
mhm,
If you choose not to do it, then you know the direction you're headed and it will take more extreme measures to regulate it. Same with your emotional responses versus reactions, right? If you s- take time to regulate your emotions and you catch them early, taking those steps, it takes a lot less mindful effort to regulate your emotions. However, if you let your emotions run your life for a very long time, it's going to take a little, well, I'm not going to lie, it's going to take a lot more focus. It's going to take a lot more effort, but once you bring it back into regulation, then your relationships improve, your connections improve, they deepen with yourself and with other people. And then it doesn't take as much focus and effort because you're really in flow. So it's same, right? That's the beauty of the universe. It's very simple, so it can be repeatable, and the methods are the same. So I don't want to belabor the point, but it is very important that if we find ourselves in relationships where we're constantly reacting or our partner is constantly reacting at us and things we're having blow ups and we our nervous system actually makes us feel like we are not safe in a relationship, but there's no real physical harm or now if you're in a relationship where there's physical harm, there's verbal violence, those are different. We're not discussing that at all, and I wanna be very clear about that.
yeah.
We are discussing if you're in a very loving relationship, yet you're getting triggered and feeling like you're unsafe, even though there's no true reason to feel unsafe. That means you're bringing something into the relationship that is causing you to feel like love is this unsafe thing for you. That's where this is coming in, right? That's where there's a dysregulation in your emotions. And I will say that I've had to honestly and transparently talk to you about this a couple of times because I have had relationships in my personal past where there were safety issues. And not that you had done anything ever to make me feel unsafe, ever. But because I had brought the baggage forward into our relationship, and there were similar, not the same, but similar things that were occurring just by happenstance. There were opportunities where I was starting to get emotionally triggered. And if I had allowed my emotions to run away with me, then I was beginning to get dysregulated, emotionally dysregulated. And I had to use the 4-step process that we're about to talk about to pull myself out of that downward spiral because it was really starting to feel like love was unsafe, even though you are the safest harbor that I could possibly ever ask for. It had nothing to do with you, nothing to do with us.
Mhm.
And so I had to sit down and chat with you through it and say, look, this is where I'm at. And please know it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with what has occurred, not once, but twice, actually 3 times in my life. And it even talking about it, like, there's emotion there, and it was you held space for me, and you listened, and you understood that it wasn't about you. And by you not being emotionally triggered and knowing that it wasn't about you, and me having the opportunity to say, "This is why I'm having this feeling of unsafety, but I too can recognize that this is not yours. This is mine, but I need space to make my way through it." Then we were able to understand where we were coming from, and that feeling of, "I'm battling you on this." And we're in this lockstep of, "How dare you do this?" It went away because you weren't actually doing anything. That was my inner critic,
Mhm.
creating a false sense of battle in my mind because that's what the critic does, right? It wants me battling the world.
Yeah, I mean, and it's such a tricky thing because what happens is when we do let the emotions take over, we're basically like opening the door for our ego.
Yeah.
And the one thing the ego doesn't want to do is die, right? And so, and as most people are afraid of death, that's actually the number, like, well, I guess isn't speaking in front
Speaking
of
in
people
public,
in public number one,
which
and then
is
dying
ego
in number
death,
two, which
right?
is ego
Yeah.
death, right? Um, so irony there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so what happens is when the ego is threatened, we turn into that flight or freeze, right?
Mhm.
And oftentimes it tends to be fight.
Fight, almost always fight.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so
It's an instinct. It
yes.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we're in that moment, even though the physical body in this specific situation that we're talking about, not us, but like the situation of emotional regulation,
Yeah.
um, or dysregulation, when we have that choice,
Yeah.
the ego is feeling like it's about to die. And and even on my side, like in now when we are talking directly about what we are talking about, I had to have my emotional regulation because even though you said this has nothing to do with you, it was like, what did I do?
Yeah. It
And then
must
it's
have
just
something
nothing
to
to
do
do,
with
or else
me,
we
or it
wouldn't be
wouldn't be
talking.
talking about it. Yeah. That is, it's a true
It
statement.
is,
And
yeah, and it goes in the head, and it's like
yeah.
and so it was my opportunity to not take personal offense, or not not take it personal, or not say anything that you were saying that was from the past was not a reflection of me and who I am in any way. But I had to actually really consciously walk myself through that and make sure that I was like holding ground and relaxing and holding space and allowing you to share what you're sharing without it being anything relative to me. And so it's important to know that it goes both ways. Like it's not just your responsibility as the communicator talking through, and you did a great job doing that. But then if I blew up, then you wouldn't be. Then the whole point is like you're not feeling safe. But then if I blew up on you because of that, then I would just be making you feel unsafe. And so that's why it's so important to have both sides of this. In that emotional regulation, when it is clear and present on both sides, that's when we can really get through things. Things don't get just tossed to the side or repressed, or we actually get through them, and it becomes um, we get a result out of it, and then we can actually become closer because of that.
And that's what I think it is important we dive into the 4 steps
Yeah,
now, because it would have been easy for me to just not say anything,
yeah,
right? To sit in how I was feeling, to stew in it, to allow it to create division between us. You wouldn't have even known why I was feeling what I was feeling, and you could already tell. I Before I said anything, you could tell there was something going on, and it almost eased your heart and your mind once I said what I said, because it gave you an insight into why. And it hadn't been triggered in me for very long at all. But this is what happens when couples are close. You can tell. But there's a courage. I'm not saying it's easy to have the courage to sit down and say something like this to your partner, but that's where these steps are helpful, even leading in, so that you can get to that stage and phase. So, are you willing to share what those 4 steps are?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, step one is pause.
Uh-huh.
And this is one we've talked about a lot, the power of the pause, the importance of the pause. Um, but it's also good to talk about this as a framework. Like, uh, pausing alone can be a standalone thing in its own way that's just as powerful as a tool.
Yeah.
But just like anything, when you are able to combine it with other aspects, other tools, it becomes part of this package kind of deal, if you
Yeah.
will, that compounds the experience of the tool to really enhance whatever your goal is. And in this case is emotional regulation. So pausing first and foremost is so important. It is the others really, it's hard to do the others without the pause first. And that's why it is number one. Because if you're not pausing, then most of the time you're going to let the reaction take over.
Yep.
You're going to let the emotion hijack you. So pausing gives you that space, whether it's a second pause or a 2 minute pause, whatever it needs to be. Like it's not. No, no, it is.
Pause for a
Pause for
moment.
Yeah, I realized I was saying the wrong words there. It is such a key factor in all of this, and it sets up the rest so you can actually deliver on the rest. The last thing we'd want to do is set you up and it's like, hey, this is good, and then it's just setting you up for failure. So no,
Yeah.
pausing is the reality is pausing is setting you up for success. And it gives you that space and that calm to say, no, I'm not going to let my ego or my emotion or anything take over. I'm in direction, and I'm going to choose how to respond instead of react to this.
Yeah. And you can pause throughout.
Yeah.
We paused a lot during that conversation, just so we didn't allow the emotions to continue to creep back in and take over, because
Mhm.
that can happen. You're really doing well. You're really doing well. And then someone says something and it's like,
Yeah.
eek, no. Okay, I need a moment. Just give me a moment. And there's nothing wrong with asking for that moment.
Exactly.
So just wanted to throw that in there.
That's perfect.
Didn't
Yeah.
mean to steal a moment, but
No, no, you do. It was beautiful. And that really blends into step number two.
number 2.
Number two, which is naming that feeling.
Yes.
And that's what you did so beautifully. First, you paused, you expressed, to me, first and foremost, kind of by creating context around naming the feeling. And this is important. Sometimes when we're naming feelings, it does help to create context, I feel. And that's something that, because if we just name a feeling, it's just, it's sad, it's like, that's okay. What is that going to mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, we getting that time to provide a little bit of context, share what's going on. And when you said, hey, this has nothing to do with you, this is where I'm at. And then these are the feelings that I'm feeling.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Because if you just started naming the feelings, then it's hard. It kind of it might unintentionally trigger the other person to feel like it's their fault that you are feeling this.
Yes.
And so setting that context is really, really important when naming the feeling for that reason.
And if it is something that you feel, especially in a partnership relationship, if you feel, say you were doing something that was making me feel a certain way, and I'm naming the feeling,
Mhm.
not blaming when saying, okay, this action is causing me to feel this way. It is important to make it about the action and not the person.
Yeah.
Right? We've also navigated through that because you aren't making me feel any specific way. Some of the actions that you're choosing are causing a feeling
Mhm.
that I have. You likely don't even know that those actions are causing me to feel that way. The moment you know it, because you love me, you'll probably choose a different action. And if not, you can inform me as to why.
Mhm.
But if I make it about you as a person, then the blame creates a whole different dynamic, and that creates a battlefield again. And then that creates emotional dysregulation between both of us. So if you get to this step and you start making it about the person and not a behavior,
Mhm.
you might throw things askew. And I just want to let people know that I've done that in my past. It did not go well. So if you can learn from the puddles I've stepped in, just want to make that kind of put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a key part again of context, right? And
Right.
using when you have the pause and then you have the context to name the feeling. Yeah, that's a great connection point. Um, all right, so you want to share 3 and 4?
So, third, because it is easy if you're naming the feeling to have those feelings then create some additional emotions, right? It's important to regulate your breath because your body is having a response. Part of it is you feel dysregulated not only in your emotions, but in your physiology. So if you can regulate to keep that pause and keep that calm with your breath, then it keeps you from resparking back into the dysregulation with your breath.
Hmm.
All it takes is taking deep breaths through the entire thing. Now, we're not talking about panting like a dog or anything like that. It is just being mindful of not getting that shallow breath that can happen when you are nervous about sharing your emotions or naming your emotions with someone. How are they going to respond? What are they going to say back to me? We tend to then breathe really shallow. It's being aware of that and breathing down into your abdomen so that it's a deep breath and a little bit longer of a breath so that it's more expansive. That allows you to, Navy SEALs do this, right? They do all types of box breathing and other types of regulatory breathing to keep themselves present in the moment and to keep them from having their entire nervous system go out of whack when things are going a little crazy. So if it's good for them, it would probably be good for you if things seem to be going a little out of the direction and you're doing your best to share it in any relationship, but especially a romantic relationship, right? So that is an amazing opportunity. And then the fourth step is to always stay in compassion, compassion for yourself and compassion for however the person responds, right? If you're sharing, so if you would have in some way been triggered by me sharing that with you, then for me to be willing to hold compassion so it didn't escalate would have been key. That would have allowed you to have whatever emotion you had. And then it would have been hard for you to continue to be upset with me if I would have stayed in complete compassion toward you, saying, I understand that what I'm sharing with you must be hard for you. It's been hard for me to navigate through. So if it's been hard for me, 100%, I can understand that it must be very challenging for you. Take the time that you need to regulate your emotions around it and let's come back together once you've had the time that I've had to regulate your emotions.
Mm.
Like, that's a compassionate place to be.
Yeah, and it's kind of unique because each one of these again are great tools in and of themselves, and we can kind of call it like a continuity factor,
Oh, yeah.
where any one of them can be used interchangeably. Like if, for example, if you pause and take a deep breath, and then using compassion, you create context and name your feeling.
Yeah.
That's going to be great too.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not that it has to be this exact 4 steps, and if you miss it, no,
Darn,
it's
I
yeah.
missed. No, we've got to start over. I messed it up.
Absolutely, and each one can be used throughout. as well. Regulating your breath is such a great way to, throughout the whole process, as you were saying, to just keep you in that state, so you don't draw back into a shallow breath, which then triggers the sympathetic nervous system, and then you want to fight and flight, and then it's like, that's not going to be good, right?
Yeah.
And so it's it's a lot better to take those deep breaths throughout. You could even pause during the deep breaths, and
Uh-huh.
that's going to keep you in the parasympathetic, and that will be a lot easier for you to regulate and be more aware, and be aware of where you're at and where the other person is. So it's also a room awareness as well. And then you can choose your words very carefully and intentionally, not from a place of I'm afraid what this person is going to say, but carefully, intentionally, from the place of I'm going to effectively communicate exactly where I am because I have the space to do so.
Yeah. And I love that. I know that it's challenging, and we're not claiming to be experts, right? But what we are saying is we've found a rhythm that really seems to build a strong and lasting relationship. One that does keep us feeling like every day is a honeymoon. And that's something that's beautiful and amazing. And we just want everyone to know that they can experience that too. But that doesn't happen by chance, that happens by choice. And these tools, these focus items that we really bring forward are choices that we make that fit for us. Now, they're not going to fit for everyone,
Mm.
but you don't know if they fit for you if you don't test them to see. So play and test and see if they fit. That's the fun of being in a beautiful, connected partnership. And then you'll know, like, that one didn't work for us. Thanks, Amber and Austin, but yeah, no, that one wasn't for us. And also tell us.
Yeah.
Like, if that one wasn't for you, it's okay. Tell us that that one wasn't for you, and tell us why it didn't work. But if it was for you, tell us that it was for you. Tell us, like, hey, we did that. It went great. And if you find something that added to it or enhanced it, let us know that too. Like, share.
Mhm.
Because as we said at the beginning of this, sharing our common stories is how we learn from one another. And we all grow in our relationships and our connections from seeing what did work for others so that then we can take it and test it and play. And it's a beautiful, beautiful way of creating community and connection.
Yeah, it's co-creation, always.
Co-creation.
Yeah, maybe there might be a fifth step, and we just didn't know. So
Yeah,
being able to share that and grow is incredible.
I agree. So, if you're looking to have more tools like this, the thing is, we have an entire podcast set here on the Heart Leader podcast that has so many tools and resources. So take some time, look at the different playlists that we have, and soak in more. And if you have ideas or things that you want to learn, take some time and post those below too. We love taking your recommendations, and we will create a podcast just for you. If this podcast hit home for you, give us a like and a subscribe. It lets us know that we're creating content that you really like. So, if you're interested in joining us, click the link that's in the description below. Until next time, we look forward to chatting with you right here in the Heart Leader community.